No public, how about?
Yeah, go ahead, I'm going to bed.
Good morning, everyone. I'll call this meeting of the Council Policy and Procedures Committee meeting to order. It's 9:04 a.m. and we have this meeting is being conducted with a virtual component. So anyone wishing to address the committee virtually may join the meeting via the Zoom link or by dialing 669-900-9128 and entering the webinar ID listed on the agenda. When the chair announces the item on which you wish to speak, click the raise hand feature in Zoom or dial *9 on your phone. And when the chair calls your name, provide public comment. If you're participating by phone, press *6 to unmute yourself. Any emails received by 5 p.m. yesterday were forwarded to the committee. Emails received after 5 p.m. will not be read during the meeting, but will be entered into the record for the meeting. Recently, regional and local elected and appointed bodies have been subjected to disruptive racial verbal attacks by anonymous callers during virtual public comment. The City of Mountain View is fully committed to racial, religious, and cultural equity and justice, and we strive to create a welcoming and safe and inclusive community for all. This advisory body commission welcomes respectful and non-threatening public comments regarding matters over which the advisory body commission has jurisdiction. Comments deemed otherwise pursuant to the council code of conduct and the government code may be grounds for immediately terminating a speaker's comment period. For roll call, it looks like all committee members are present as of 9:05 a.m. And the first item that we'll move to was the minutes approval for the CPPC meeting minutes back in March 5th, back on March 5th of 2025. I think you've all received copies. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? Anything from you, Lucas? I didn't have any minutes. No questions or comments. I don't see any public comment on the minutes, either in person or virtual. So motion's in order to approve the minutes. So moved. And I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. I'll abstain.
And I'll vote aye as well. So committee member Ramirez votes aye, Chair Parker votes aye, and committee member McAllister abstains from the minutes. Move on to oral communications from the public on non-agendized items. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the committee on any matter not on the agenda. Speakers are allowed to speak on any topic for up to 3 minutes during this section. State law prohibits the CPPC from acting on non-agendized items. Would any member of the public like to provide comment on an item that is not on today's agenda? I don't see anyone in person or virtually. So we'll close oral communications and move on to item 5.1, Council Policy A13. This is in regards to council policies and procedures for motions to reconsider for reconsideration. Looks like, do we have Assistant City Attorney Diana?
Hi, good morning. I'm Diana Fazeli, Assistant City Attorney. This item is being brought to you this morning. It's specifically Section 11 of Council Policy A13, motions for reconsideration, and it's been being brought to the CPPC to discuss and provide direction on amendments to Section 11 at Councilmember Clark's request at the April 22nd, 2025 council meeting.
Okay. So I think just as a reminder, we had the council referred this at the request to the committee. And really the goal there was, there are pathways for reconsideration that's in the standard course of whether it's Robert's rules or just standard procedure. But what I was hoping to do is just have a discussion around what parameters we might put in our policies and procedures to guide future councils, or if this were to come up again. So for example, right now, anyone can bring anything back for reconsideration within, certain parameters. But I think what we talked about at the meeting was maybe adding a few examples or other boundaries, such as, demonstrating that something significant had changed, maybe maybe a situation to change as opposed to someone just simply changing their mind, 4 weeks later or whatever it happens to be. So I sent, or I thought I sent, some proposed language, but I need to pull it back up, I guess.
Share while you're looking for it. What was the time frame from the time the original vote was to the time that it was reconsidered? Does anybody remember?
That one was longer than, I think that was longer than the immediate meeting after, maybe because there was a special meeting. I
Okay.
feel like it happened probably, it felt like it was maybe roughly a month. So
Month
maybe
later.
1 or 2 regular meetings after.
So it was not the next regular or adjourned regular meeting.
No, not that I recall. So just as a comparison, so for example, let's say that the deadline is after reconsideration is passed. So you're beyond your normal timeline. Let's say that you've passed that timeline. It currently says that it shouldn't be placed on for reconsideration within 1 year. But we could add language that say, for example, unless the facts or circumstances that were relied upon during the prior discussion materially changed. And then we could provide some examples. So for example, if council or staff has received new information that had we known at the time might have impacted others' decisions, or if there were errors in the original meeting materials, substantially new or updated information, material changes in the state, federal, like those are things where we might provide leave to bring something back after the regular, after the regular meeting prior. So it's just adding some language to provide some examples. I'm sorry, this didn't go out before the meeting.
Well-
Is it possible to display the language you're suggesting?
I can try.
Can you send it to Michael?
You can send it to me or you can plug into the HDMI cord behind you.
I just love the language.
Oh.
Yes, what would you like to do?
I think I'll send it. Where is it best to send it to?
Michael Schultz.
My email, Michael Schultz.
I just sent one, I just
You
sent
sent
it.
it.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. You had it. I didn't have it. Sorry.
I gotta prove I'm me before I can log into my email.
Discussing.
So if you have a copy of it. It's really focusing on section D, so. I think A, B, and C are pretty clear, so, and E and F as well, so it's really just beefing up section D to add a few different, basically saying if we're gonna reconsider something after that normal time frame that we have,
Is that big enough?
yeah, that's it.
So is it the highlighted part?
Yeah, I didn't redline it, but I think,
You got stuff in a towel, so.
yeah.
Then I have some questions.
Yeah, sure.
Is there a presentation? Do we do public comment?
But so, yeah, so it's really focused on section D and just providing some some examples of situations where the council might find it acceptable to review something after the deadline's passed. And that, because that was the case that we dealt with previously, where there wasn't really a reason provided for bringing it back. And I think that's what I sensed people wanting to avoid, but if you have questions about it, we can ask questions.
Well,
Yes.
it was the motions, I have thoughts on this.
No, I did not move to reconsider, but I supported the motion to reconsider. So the first question is, I know that there are some practical limitations or constraints on the council's ability to tie its own hands. So if we amended the policy to prohibit, I guess, an untimely motion to reconsider, right? So it's different from what is currently stipulated in the policy. You can do it if you have a council member and basically a second, right? At least one of whom voted on the prevailing side. Would that policy actually be enforced?
Yes.
It would be. So council could say, we're not going to allow something to be placed back on an agenda within a year.
Yes.
That's true across councils too, right? So at the end, an item is dispensed with in December after an election. A new council comes in, that council doesn't like that consideration. So they're prohibited for a year from reconsidering that.
Or they can amend this policy, change the policy, and then bring it back within a year.
I view this as like all of our other policies and procedures. If there are 4 people who want to do something different, they can do something different. But we create these standards and try and say, here's what we want to generally adhere to. And there should be, if we're going to go outside these boundaries, like changing the mayor rotation and do something else, which we have the authority to do, there should be a good reason for it. And so what I tried to do here was just suggest some examples of when we might allow an untimely motion to reconsider. So that's something in between. I'm just going to offer it an untimely motion without any real any demonstrable reason of how the facts change or what's changed. Something between what exists today and not, but also not completely tying our hands.
I understand what you're trying to achieve, and I have some thoughts about it. But before, just to make sure I have all of the facts and understanding. So with this also, I'm thinking about after the 2014 election, the previous council had adopted the North Bayshore Precise Plan, didn't allow housing. The newly elected council wanted to amend it. And I think the city administration, the city manager proactively brought forward basically kind of a motion to reconsider. Do you want to add housing? The council said yes. Would this prohibit the administration itself from bringing back an item that had been dispensed by a council within a year? Or does it only apply in the narrow context of a council motion to reconsider?
So I'm gonna give you a little bit of backdrop, just to let you, so that you, one, understand what you can do here. Robert's rules, if you were going with Robert's rules or Rosenberg rules, they don't allow for this. It's untimely if the motion for reconsideration is not made at the meeting. So you have adopted rules, which you can do, that expand on Robert's rules of order and Rosenberg's rules of order, and you are giving way more flexibility and allowing council members to make motions to reconsideration almost at any time right now, with support of 2 council members, right? Under this proposed with new facts and circumstances. So you're perfectly well within your right to modify your rules and to modify Robert's rules and Rosenberg's rules. But just for clarification, to Robert's rules, you wouldn't be allowed to do that. It would be untimely and would not be able to go forward. That does not, I don't think, ever prohibit an entire item from coming back, being brought back to be, and I guess reconsidered, but you're almost starting over. So I would say if, say, a resolution was adopted right? And you wanted to reconsider that resolution that was adopted. You're bringing that back to either amend it, you're bringing it back to repeal and replace it, you're bringing it back to do many things. So it sort of depends on the action that was initially taken, but I don't think that this would ever prevent council from reconsidering an entire item. It just sort of, I can think of many, many items, right, across the spectrum of things that you've done. You might amend an ordinance, but you might want to amend it again. This won't prohibit you from amending that ordinance again, whatever the vote was to amend that ordinance on September 1st meeting doesn't mean that you're not going to amend it a second time on September 15th because something new has come up, or October or November 15th, right? Less than a year later. So when you ask that question, I think it really depends on what you're talking about. In the situation where this came up, we were talking about study session direction, right? And a change in study session direction. So I think you should talk, as you're talking about this, you should be thinking about the context in which you may want to limit motions for reconsideration. Certainly, you don't want to limit yourself in being able to amend an ordinance multiple times. It might come up multiple times, something new might change. But in providing direction in study session, right, in the context of study session, staff is going off to do something that council has directed us to do. And we're working on it to bring back maybe some final document, resolution, ordinance amendment, or some new motion that you're going to make. And so that's where these motion for reconsiderations can potentially create difficulty where there is no change in facts and circumstances, right? It's just literally a change in mind. But once you give direction in study session and we go off as staff and we go off and do what council has directed, and maybe that's bringing back an ordinance with potential amendments, you can still change your mind then. Right? The ordinance is now before council. You are looking at the amendments that we've drafted based on the direction provided in study session, and you can still not vote for that and change it at that time. Because it's now the actual action that's before council, right? So I don't know if you want to change motions consideration in general, if you want to change them in the context of study sessions. But you're never bound in the context of a study session because we're always bringing something back to you later that's going to require final action.
I can give you two examples, one that I was on the prevailing side for and one that I wasn't. The North Bay Shore change, that wasn't a motion to reconsider. That was a new council has been seated and they chose to revisit prior decisions. It wasn't a motion to reconsider. Because you had new council members, people who voted before weren't there anymore. That to me is a material change in the legislative landscape that would, if you were to do a motion to reconsider in that case, then you would have a valid reason to. But that probably wouldn't be the vehicle that you would use, and it's not the vehicle that was used for the North Bay Shore change. The one that I was on the other side on and didn't agree with, but the council moved forward anyway, was cannabis. No, it was cannabis.
Oh, that's
We
right.
had an election,
That was
new
a motion to
council
reconsider.
members were seated, but it wasn't a motion to reconsider. It was a second reading of an ordinance that went down. So the first reading was approved in December, January, we reversed course. So I don't think there have been any major changes where the motion to reconsider has been a vehicle after a council was changed. And so I'm trying to find this balance between just not allowing untimely motions to reconsider, which we currently allow them, but also not just also having, you know, some parameters around it. So that if you're offering an untimely motion to reconsider, one, you've talked to the city manager and the city attorney or whomever first. And two, you're explaining your reasoning at the dais. Sorry, I didn't see your hand.
Oh, no, thank you, Chair. So I would just offer this too. There's something to be said for technically, you know, what the city attorney said, all that is very true, accurate. But there's something to be said for how you make good public policy. And if me and prior city managers, or even those of you who talk to community members after a vote is taken, if I could tell you the number of times of conversations where people might feel differently or think differently, there would probably be a lot of times, it would be constant, where we would be just revisiting policy issues. Those are two good examples, and I think there's other examples. So I think to some extent, the purpose of this is to also think about how the body makes good policy. And you wouldn't want to be in a situation where it's so easy to do and so freely done that it's really constraining staff's ability to, get the work done, or it's hampering workload. And to your point, if staff's spending months doing something and they come back and you can choose to go a different route in that way, but then the clock starts all over again with getting the work done, and then we get backed up by, okay, things aren't possibly being done at times. So I'll just offer that for you, that this to me seems about getting at how you make good policy and how you kind of give yourself a little bit of parameters as a body, how you want to act. Yes, you can go outside of these policies, as was stated, if all it takes is 4 members, but I mean, these are kind of guardrails for yourselves. So that's the way I look at it.
I have a lot of thoughts, but I
I
don't
want
know.
to hear your thoughts,
Okay.
please.
Thank you, Councilman. So a few things. I think the part of why I ask is we may understand what the policy means and is intended to achieve, but the organization will change, right? We're the ship of Theseus. So I want to make sure that whatever policy is in place after we're gone, presuming it doesn't get changed, is understood in the same manner that we're intending. And it was not immediately obvious, and I think it was clarified in the city attorney's remarks that this would not be interpreted by a future staff as meaning, oh, wow, the council does not want to reconsider something, even if there is a change in council, for instance, right? Which is the North Bay Shore example. So as long as this isn't, if it's very clear that this doesn't preclude staff from coming back to council within a year on a matter dispensed with, then
May I speak to that, Lucas, or council member?
Lucas is fine.
It's like, are we formal or more informal in these? So to you asked, if there was something that the city manager or staff would change, or the example was done previously. If there was something material by staff, or even something that would change the way that council voted, that was brought to either the city attorney or myself, I don't think this would preclude us coming to you, or me coming to the body saying, hey, you all took a vote, but there's something, significant that changed, or something that we forgot to put in there, like housing or whatever. We need to bring this back to council. I don't see this precluding something that, administratively from, staff or your appointees, for us to be able to say that this is something that council would need to bring back. And if you feel like it should be written in, maybe it's just making that addition in there, to say that, give that ability to the city manager, if something has changed, that the city manager may raise an issue, however we word it. But if you're concerned about that, you can put it in.
A shared understanding is helpful. I
Yeah,
think, right?
yeah.
And
Can I step in here? Sorry. I think we're getting too far afield of what a motion for reconsideration is versus bringing an item back for further consideration or further amendment or modification. I think you need to, a motion for reconsideration is, this is really designed to address the finality of vote on any particular item at a given time. And in the event that you want to change it, you need to go through a different process. It's intended to not make it easy to just willy-nilly change your mind on one day you voted yes in favor of the ordinance amendments. You slept on it, and 3 days later you decided you wanted to change your vote to no, and nothing has changed. You just have a crisis of conscience and you want to change your vote. That is the kind of thing that you don't want happening, because that is just, you will never have finality in vote. And Robert's rules, it's decorum, it's conduct. It's these legislative bodies, you're supposed to have this quorum and conduct, you're supposed to be making decisions, and people are supposed to rely on decisions as final decisions when you make them and you make the vote. You shouldn't be able to just change your mind in any given day. One day you have a crisis of conscience and you want to do no, and then you sleep on it again and you want to vote yes. And it's to stop that kind of flip-flop. This is not intended to stop you from bringing a major item back for like, that's a conversation, for instance, with the city manager saying, we need another study session on the biodiversity plan. We voted on this, but this other issue has come up. A constituent in the community raised this particular issue. We didn't even talk about this. We didn't consider, this isn't a crisis of conscience thing. This is a major change in what you want to do, or some new aspect of that plan. You just bring that plan back again. It doesn't mean that it even undoes what was done. You just bring it back. You bring the plan back again for further consideration. That's not motion for reconsideration.
The mayor, the vice mayor, in consultation with staff, have agenda setting.
Yes.
That always remains. What we're addressing here is a very specific, we have taken a final vote on something very specific, whether it's a policy topic or an ordinance or whatever, or residential law, and someone wants to revisit that particular vote. And what I'm trying to say here is, okay, you can do that in a timely manner already. If you're gonna do it 2, 3, 4 weeks later, there has to be a good reason. And here are some examples of good reasons. And by the way, in addition to having a reason, you need to tell staff that you're gonna do it. So that no one's surprised.
I appreciate the discussion. I feel like I'm a lousy communicator. So maybe I'll put aside the questions and just share what I think. I think the context is important, right? Where this has been a problem, to the extent it's a problem. It's been in study sessions where there was not always a shared understanding of what we're doing. This is part of the reason why I hate study sessions. I think a question of definitive direction is ambiguous in the context of a study session, or it's not in the context of new business. That's where to the extent there's a problem, I'm not sure I would agree that there's a problem to begin with, but to the extent there's a problem, it's been in the context of study sessions. I want to make sure that while I agree with what you're saying, when I'm long gone and dead, a couple of years, right, when there are different people here, they say the same things that you're saying, right? So there isn't a situation where, for instance, there's a change in council, that new council, let's say, Councilmember McAllister gets a lot of friends, right? And you disagree with some of the things that we've done in the past, right? You and your new colleagues aren't subject to a rigid application of this new rule. A matter acted upon by the body shall not be placed on the agenda again for consideration within 1 year.
That's already a rule, by the way.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
That
So,
exists.
yes, so I don't think there's a problem, right? But to the extent there is, a different city attorney, a different city manager may look at that and say, that's pretty clear cut. It means if you've voted on something or you've dispensed with it, then you shall not consider it again within a year, right? So I think, I'm not opposed to some tactical modifications to the language. I just want to make sure everyone moving forward has a shared understanding of what the applicability and what the interpretation of that language really means. And the last thing is, I think I have some trouble with, unless facts or circumstances relied upon during the prior decision of material change, but there's a subjectivity in that, right? So one council member may say, I simply didn't understand what I was voting on, right? Which I don't want to, I think that was a material consideration in one of the more recent motions to reconsider. I didn't understand that this would it would have a concrete impact on the CEQA analysis and deprive me of the ability to consider different changes in density. Would that pass muster here? And who gets to decide, right? Does the burden fall on staff to determine if the facts or the circumstances have materially changed? Or is that the council? And if it's the council, then how is this different from the current policy? Who gets to decide what a material change is?
The council does. So the way that this would play out is, let's take the scenario that happened previously. Instead of just making a motion to reconsider, when you're making that, you would have to identify for your colleagues why, it fits within our policies and procedures to do this in an untimely manner, and cite one of these, and the council can decide that sounds like it's within policy and that's an acceptable, and that's an acceptable reason or not. I think what would be different under something like this is that you have a few more parameters. You've also given the mayor, vice mayor, staff a heads up. Like there's just a little bit, it feels more like it's a bigger deal to bring an untimely motion to reconsider under this framework than it would be before. And it's really just making that very clear to whoever is going to make that motion that they need to have a really good reason for it. In my opinion, I didn't understand what I was voting on is probably, that's happened to me before, but it's never been, you move on. I guess if it were a really big policy question, it's different, but you can explain it.
Right.
Can I add one more piece of information? Don't forget, you always have a motion to amend. Just a completely different type of motion that can always be made. So a motion for reconsideration is one method to change something and typically has very short parameters and timeframes around it. And then there's the other process for a motion to amend, which is a little bit more of a complicated process, which again, it's about process. It's about how easy is it to flip the script, right? I agree that I think study sessions are
Awful.
the big problem. And the reason why study sessions were the big problem, and I will refresh everyone's recollection because you weren't here. But the study sessions were a problem is because council cannot take final action in study sessions. And motions for reconsideration apply to final action. But you wanted an ability to reconsider study session direction, even though it is not final action. And so we got into this weird place where you're having these study sessions, you're providing direction, staff is going off, complying with the direction that was provided to bring back the item. The item again, still coming back for final action, at which time you are free to amend that final action. But you have council members that did not want to do it in that process, which would have been the proper place to amend it. Not a reconsideration sort of in the middle when we're just working off a direction and not final action.
In that one case, though, I think that this is why I think this is an extremely rare event, right? In that case, it was de facto final direction because the next step was after the CEQA process, right? And if the direction is final insofar as we provided like the maximum development capacity to be studied. So after the CEQA was done, you can't go back and say, actually, I wanted greater development capacity or greater intensity in this area. So that's why, I hate study sessions, and I hope a future council gets rid of them permanently, because I think that's where the problem is. But in that case, what choice was there other than a motion to reconsider?
So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I do think that the problem in that circumstances was the nature of study sessions.
Right.
And I mean, I hear what you're saying. You gave direction that was going to result in final action because action was going to be taken prior to that item coming
A
back.
limiting action, right? Like the staff was directed to begin the CEQA analysis. And I think that's where the council member had some questions or confusion.
Yeah.
There would not be a chance to revisit this direction on what should the maximum envelope in CEQA be.
Yeah.
Right.
Without spending another year doing it all over.
Exactly,
Right.
right. And that would be another $400,000. Yeah, so I think, I'm gonna vote yes, just because I'm ending my time on council and nothing matters anymore. But I think this issue has honestly been addressed in the context of the study session. Like we explicitly added, the procedure for reconsideration where there was an ambiguity, and if there was a 3-4 vote and one member of the council changed their mind, after that 3-4 vote in a study session, there was ambiguity about what staff should do, knowing that it was going to come back and there was going to be a different majority at that time, right? But I'll vote yes, because I am persuaded that the staff are not going to see this as limiting their ability to do work. If it's a 3-4 vote, which is the only time this really matters, and I'm, part of the minority, doesn't matter what evidence that council member seeking to change their mind provides. I'm an ideological zealot, so I'm going to support their motion to reconsider, right? It doesn't change anything. But I'm a good soldier, so you got my vote.
I'm sorry. I know, I really want policies to be good, and I know I'm stepping on my own foot here and you're voting yes, but I want you to think of something else. I'm sorry, because I just don't want to be in a place where you're unclear about your policies. I'm not quite sure why the sentence in there about a matter acted upon shall not be placed on the agenda again for consideration within 1 year. That's not in Robert's rules.
Right.
You could leave. You've got to make facts and you've got to make a showing for reconsideration. And you can scratch that you can't come back within 1 year. You could make an appropriate motion for reconsideration however many times you want, as long as you make the showing.
Yeah, First, I didn't mean for this to be final language. This was just. Because we can add things like, we're not going to preclude a newly seated council from doing anything, or this isn't all the things that you mentioned. This should be final language. To the 1 year thing, I actually, that's in the policy today.
It is.
But we don't adhere to it, rigidly.
Well, I made a really big fuss when we didn't adhere to it. Because personally, I think good governance, one of the key things about good governance is that you don't turn into Wisconsin, and every 2 years, the majority flips and they just undo each other's work, and you spend 10 years doing and undoing people's work.
Well, and it has an effect on staff. I mean, because then it's.
I would want to work there.
So, thank you.
Also,
Anything done.
see, that's why that line is because a majority can always change the policy.
Right.
That line is really only impactful for staff.
No, it's norm setting for the council. It says, just like the mayor, vice mayor rotation, all that stuff. This is what we have agreed should be the norms. And you can go outside the norms, but you should be very aware that you should make sure that in that case, the public knows that you are going outside the norms. Your staff, everyone knows that there's an aberration occurring.
Well, so you and I both, and actually the three of us voted the same way in the cannabis side, right? I wasn't really interested in revisiting it either, right? But a majority wanted to.
Yeah.
Majority did not care that.
And I accepted that because the council would change. So
Right.
that in my mind was a little different.
Right.
But I think it's generally good practice. Once you've taken a final vote on something, especially if it's truly final, like an ordinance or a resolution, that you're not just gonna go mess with it within 3 or 6 months.
And
And
fortunately, that's very rare in
Yeah,
this
it's-
organization, which is why I like it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay. And the last point, I would support personally the suggestion from the city attorney. I think a matter acted upon by the body shall not be placed. So if we clarify that that's intended to apply only for the council's reconsideration of an item, rather than, for staff to share some modifications, either anticipating a change in the council. I mean, that should be the city manager's, discretion, right? I'm anticipating that this is going to come up, so I'm going to prepare it in a way that makes sense. I don't want that to apply to staff. And I think my narrowly focused challenges, I think there's an ambiguity, right? And there could be a circle where, a different city manager or a different city attorney could look at that and say, we can't bring it back. It's not within the year, right? Even if that's staff initiated, as opposed to you know, a motion to reconsider.
We can-
Or enough
we can
time.
make that.
Yeah. Okay,
That wasn't the intent. I get it.
I think we're making a lot of something out of nothing. Um, First clarity for the city attorney, you keep saying Robert's Rules of Order. This says Rosenberg, so what is it?
Combination of Robert's rules and Rosenberg's. You can create your own policies and procedures for the conduct of your council meetings. Some cities just use Robert's rules. Some cities just use
What do we
Rosenberg's.
use?
You use a combination of both.
Well, there's where,
That you've adopted on your own, which you are allowed to do.
that's where Lucas should get in, get that in.
That was a change, by the way, 10 years ago. it
Yeah.
was Robert's.
Okay,
really?
I think, let me go back when this occurred. When I heard it was, we had to, they were allowed to do it, we voted for it. If I had an opportunity, I would have voted no, even though he said we had to do it. I was one at a thing where I changed my mind on a final vote. But I did it that night. I mean, immediately I contacted the city mayor, the city manager, and I said, no, I just don't feel. And I had to change the conscience, but it was immediate. And some guy held it against me 8 years later. So this one, I was dubious of the person's motive. I really didn't, when I heard what was going on, I felt this doesn't sound right. And when it came back, that person didn't even vote the way she wanted, to reconsider. She voted the other way. And it came out. So I like study sessions. I don't want to get rid of them because it gives staff some direction, gives us input before it comes back, and we're reinventing the wheel too many times. And so to the city attorney's point, I totally agree that we need to make it for staff. They're on a track and they got so many ways they're going right now. And we have to respect their time. And if a council member who has been briefed on something, had the opportunity to talk to people, can't make up their mind, TS. It's on the council to know their stuff when they get there and ask the simple questions afterwards. So I see what you say, I just see people aren't doing their job and reading the material and taking every opportunity to get briefed on something if they're not aware of it. So we have too much to be churning things over and over. And I don't particularly, all this wording, I would have just said 3 votes or more. And that gave it a better chance. If something's gonna happen with 2 people, you go boom. I've been on council so far and we said, well, I'll just vote for it so we can have a discussion, and it doesn't go anywhere. I'd say just make it to 3 or 4 votes or 3 votes, and then you got at least the majority of people, or you got a solid basis for, okay, people are concerned about it. All this other stuff, the way the state legislature is changing their mind and passing stuff on housing, that's the first line is a matter of act upon it. So, unless something new happens, well, the state comes along and changes the law, so then we have to comply with it. So there's a lot of that going on all the time. So those are my thoughts. I just changed it to 3, the prevailing. I've been doing this for 9 years, you too, Chris. This was the first time it ever came up like this. And I thought that, I'd be happy to just leave in C and forget D altogether. And just say, hey, if you can't figure it out within within a month, move on. We've learned, and what's really good about Mountain View Council, we take a vote, we move on. We don't sit there and, bellyache about, oh, well, we should have this, that. We move on. And with all the things that are on our plates and all the things that are changing, I just say, go to C and go from there. And then, if the laws changes, just like the building code, staff came back and said, hey, we got to change this. We got to jump on it right now. And I've never seen an example where staff said, hey, something changed, you got to just update it. So that's my thought.
What was 3?
You said it's a C.
I didn't under, I heard C, but.
C is just, if you can't figure it out in a month,
Always.
yes.
It just says, yes, you have to make the motion at the same meeting or the next regular adjourned meeting, and then a motion for reconsideration after that time would be untimely.
Oh, right. It's
and it
just,
just cuts it off.
It cuts it off. We
But it
got-
doesn't, as Councilmember
John.
McAllister, no, as Councilmember McAllister says, that does not prevent a motion to amend, staff bringing it back because there's been a change in the law or some other major facts or circumstances. It also still wouldn't prevent a new body
Yeah.
seeking to amend a prior decision that was made by the council, the prior council. You could bring back an entire ordinance, right? In January, you've got 3 new members or whatever, and they say, we want to amend. They bring it up under item 8. I want this ordinance to come back and I want to talk about amendment of these provisions. It doesn't stop that.
I mean, that is the other way to do it, is just simplify all this and say, we're just not gonna. Unless someone wants to change the rules, we're just not gonna allow untimely motions to reconsider. And if you want to reconsider something, you just have to do it through this other process.
I think that's okay. So it would be like Councilmember McAllister was suggesting,
Just drop.
here's the deadline, right? It's where the matter was first voted or at the next regular or adjourned regular meeting. So it gives you a very narrow period of time. And then after the so D could simply be after the deadline has passed, a motion for reconsideration is considered untimely at the end.
No, just, why does D even have to be there? A motion for a reconsideration later is untimely, and that's the
We know
C.
it's rare anyway,
Yeah.
right? Like if there
I
would
feel
be,
like maybe was D inserted, some of this is my language, but some of it existed. Was it added because of the study session
no,
stuff?
that was
No.
the study session was a new, an entirely different
I
sector.
see.
So I actually would be comfortable with this, like, as much as I want to give people the chance to reconsider if they really need to, there are clearly are complexities, there's consternation, it's politically fraught. And maybe we just emphasize, and especially in study sessions where I think this is the only place this is going to be actually a problem. Here is where the action is de facto definitive, right? There will not be a chance to provide input on the scope of the EIR or something, right? So everyone, and that's like sometimes you have to beat council members over the head with that. But if it's still not clear to you, with it, you've got the narrow time frame, you can say, shoot, I just realized that you told me that was definitive or whatever. But after that point, it's no longer timely and you can't make a motion to reconsider.
May I talk timing here?
Yeah.
So for C, it's that it can also be brought up at the next regular meeting. Sometimes
Right.
that's 3 weeks later, sometimes it's 4 weeks later. So it could happen more frequently because D attempts to put teeth on it. I just want to make sure you all,
I think C puts the
Think about
teeth in
that.
it. If they can't come up, move on.
And I think the
That's good.
requirement to
At the
work with the
next
city
meeting.
manager and
That's
city
what
attorneys.
Yeah, I think that's,
One and done.
so maybe, yeah, I mean, the additional language is really meant to think about untimely motions to reconsider, but I'm personally fine simplifying it. I wasn't quite sure where it came from to begin with, so I was hesitant to just rip it out, but that makes sense because there are other mechanisms to address things beyond the next regular meeting, whether it's through amendment or getting
So
a couple other colleagues. So maybe we do that, but we also keep in if you're gonna do this, tell someone, don't just surprise.
Right, or
someone at that meeting,
like,
but
this is not
The last
within the
part.
scope of this meeting, but I think clarity in the study sessions is important, right? If it's a new business item and you screw it up, that's on you.
Yeah.
But if we're doing stuff, a series of straw polls and on one straw poll, you didn't understand or whatever, right? Like, I think clarity at the conclusion, like, here is the definitive direction the council is taking, is that really the direction you want to go? If we have study sessions, I disagree. I have heard over the years, study sessions are bad and never good. And in the case that you brought up, Councilmember McAllister, I think that's important because under this rule set, you would not have been able to make that decision, right? Regardless of timeliness, right? It wasn't a motion to reconsider, and there's a public policy element in that the public was denied the opportunity to.
Well, that's another
provide
thing. That's
input.
not good government. If all of a sudden we're discussing something we did 6 months later and the public doesn't have a right. I'd like to just see D disappear, and if you wanted to touch a little thing on C, but that just too
Add
much.
the last sentence maybe, that they have to talk to the city manager and city
The very
attorney.
last
That's fine.
Yeah, add
That's
that to
fine.
C
Yeah.
and pass it, and we recommend it.
I think that's fine. So
I'll
moved.
make a motion.
Yeah, well,
Second.
okay. Well,
Drop except for the last line.
And then it wouldn't say untimely motion, it would just say for prior to offering a motion to
Right.
reconsider.
No, the whole thing be going, it's just the last sentence.
Right, but we have to change the last sentence.
Okay,
I would like to keep. I would like to not remove anything that's there. Sorry.
Yeah.
I like the 1 year thing, but that's just me. So I guess the question is. Because, you know, we can work with staff to figure out. To capture kind of what we just talked about. It's really just focusing on. The motions to reconsider should be timely and you should tell someone about it.
Right.
And
Or
maybe we just don't mess
at
with any
the
of those.
deadline, they're untimely.
Right.
You can't do it. And to have a motion to reconsider, you have to confer with the city manager and city attorney.
Right.
Those are the two elements. right?
Yeah. that's-
Can I throw out something else out there for you all to just think about? And this can work where you all are headed. You could also think about putting parameters on the number of times that someone could do this. Because with eliminating this, then it's basically you can change your mind. You can go talk to people after you take a vote. You can go talk to community members. You can even talk to your colleagues. You can come back at a regular meeting and change your mind. And what if you have a colleague now or in the future that does this very frequently and is still adhering to all the rules, and maybe they have a second vote, but it's a constant kind of whipsawing. So I'm thinking from a staff perspective. Do you want to put parameters around it or
So-
not? Like no single council member shall change their mind, in a year more than 2 times or 1 time. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there for the possibilities.
Here's why I would respectfully disagree. I think, well, keep in mind that any motion to reconsider still requires a majority of the city council, right? So it's not like one person unilaterally can shift the organizational workload, right? I changed my mind. Even like I was not even close, right? I was the 1 vote and a 6-1 vote. My changing my mind means nothing, right? But also a council member who does that, I think risks losing a lot of credibility, right? So if they're constantly seeking a motion to reconsider,
yeah, I mean, they still has to be voted. We just say,
Right.
no.
Yeah. The other thing is, if I were that council member and I felt strongly enough about my 3rd time, I'm just gonna go tap someone else on the shoulder and have
Yeah.
them offer
Yeah.
the.
Yeah.
well, they have to be a member of the prevailing
Right,
side
right,
too,
right.
right? So like that's the other thing, right? That person, it would be a strange circumstance where that person is constantly on the prevailing side of the votes and always wanting to
It's
change.
It's a good point, though. I feel like we probably don't need to go that.
Yeah, and I suppose if it ever got to that point, that's a bigger conversation.
probably-
That's a retreat kind of conversation. That's a one-on-one conversation that's getting into probably not so good governance. Right? So, but I just wanted to throw it out
Did I
there.
make a motion? Did you second it?
Yes,
So can I clarify the motion?
Yeah.
So you're keeping C, a motion made for reconsideration made later, if untimely, meaning it's not in order, it cannot be taken. Okay? So maybe we need clarity around what untimely means. Untimely motions are not to be
And not
considered,
allowed.
not allowed. Okay?
Yeah, it's after it's whatever's in the.
Yeah, C
The
now.
Rosenberg's rules, it's after the next regular meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
It's untimely.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you're adding the language about
conferring.
conferring with the city manager
The last sentence.
or city attorney. Okay.
And hopefully they'll do their jobs and talk them out of it.
But I think it does need, I think under current rules, it does need to be sponsored by 2 or more council members, right?
Well, at
Yes,
least
it
one of
says-
them
At least
is,
one who is, because I don't want to change what we already have there.
if you lose, you can't reconsider. Yeah.
Yeah, it says a matter acted upon may be reconsidered by a motion of the person who voted on the prevailing side. And then B says any member of the body may second the motion, has to be seconded. And then the rules require majority of council members present to actually carry that motion.
That works for me. Are you okay with that second?
Yes.
Sponsoring.
I just want to make sure, we don't have any members of the public
Timely
that have
motion.
joined.
To
That wanna
reconsider,
talk
not
about this.
unseemly.
Somebody named staff.
Staff is me.
I saw that.
And
That's okay.
Heather has been on, but
Oh. That's.
that's it.
Does she have public comment?
She does not.
And I don't see anyone else in the room, so, so there's no public comment on this item and.
Wait, one last question, sorry, the recommendation said this goes straight to council? Or do you want to see the red lines back to you before it goes to council? Sorry, we need direction on that, because the memo left that open. Do you want to see it, or do you want it going straight to council with these amendments in red line for the full body to consider?
On consent.
Do you care if I review it? So-
I trust the chair.
Okay. I mean, it'll probably end up on consent anyway, and I can pull it and talk to it, or talk about it. Okay.
So with direction to provide it to the chair for review, that it aligns with the motion, and then straight to council after that, not back to
Yeah.
CPC.
So if we make the motion, can the chair change it? Okay.
No, I mean, the intent is clear and it's recorded, so yes, if I try and mess with it.
We'll say
Well,
no.
sounds like you-
I will
Yeah.
smack my hand,
So-
then you'll smack my hand.
We're going down all these little side roads and it just drives me nuts, so.
It's okay.
I apologize. You needed clarification on that.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. 5.2, PPPC agenda topics update.
Just very brief, because you just took care of the items today, the one item that was remaining on our agenda so far for this fiscal year. And so right now, there is nothing that is pending, but as items come in, we'll make sure and ensure we update the chair.
The only item I would say that's possible, and I need to double
Potential.
check on whether this has to come to CCD or the finance committee, and I think it's the finance committee, but we will probably have some updates to the employee home fire assistance program. But I think it goes to CFC, but just putting that on your radar, I'm gonna double check that.
Okay, I got a couple of, is this where I can add? Because last time I started talking, I got.
Yeah, so we'll move on from 5.2 to item 6, which is,
I have some questions on 5.2,
oh, sorry.
unless Council.
No, go ahead.
Do you have
You're on
questions
a
on
roll.
5.2?
You got a roll, go.
Thank you, I appreciate it. We have among our council work plan or strategic priorities, the council policy / template updates. It says update city policies, templates, and documents as needed. I was curious whether, at the staff level or perhaps staff in coordination with the chair, if this is an opportunity to go through, there are a lot of council policies that are outdated, unenforceable, duplicative to municipal code. And boy, it'd be nice over time, not tomorrow, not next week, but to go through and just have sort of a work plan. Like over the next few years, here are the top priority policies for either repeal because they're not enforceable or clearly irrelevant, or cleanup, right? And then maybe to come back, I would say work with the chair, right? And come back with some reasonable work cadence, I guess, but I'd love to get a sense of how staff intends to operationalize that work plan.
Question for you. Are those that have to go through the charter or things that we can do internally?
Council policies internally.
Okay.
So you're saying that if there's council policies, we might see us needing cleanup.
Or just repeal. I've gone through them and I'm like, has anyone touched this since 1986? You know,
So there's charter cleanup, city code cleanup, and now we're cleaning up.
this is,
how it-
we approved it. You guys voted. It was a
I
unanimous.
know it is. I was trying to figure out how you sequence that because they're gonna reference each other, but I get it. I didn't realize that was a work plan item. Did you, this is,
Okay, I'm just
the time
asking.
for agenda
Okay.
stuff. Yeah.
There's a couple things that during the election that sort of interesting. You can't take a donation 1 week before the end. But if you have a limit of how much you can get, that rule is not needed. I don't know why you still can't collect money if there's, as long as you're below the.
This is in the Muni code, not council policy.
I know, that's why I'm saying if it's something is this where we discuss, say, we'd like to bring this forward for review. So I would like to see that change because the 1,000, why are you putting you can't collect money in the last week. You're big on this political thing. Why does it matter if you have a cash limit? If you got up to, you know, if you're still collecting money and you still haven't reached the limit, why is that 1 week so important?
I'm curious, because I actually agree with, because I just went through that a year ago and it was really, I found it to be really dumb. I understood why it was there, but I think it's, but I don't know if this body.
Right.
Yeah, so-
Would that be like?
City council item.
That would just be a council item 8, and then who would review it? Would it, is there a body that would? A council committee that's appropriate for that, or maybe not?
On election related things as the full council.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, just a full.
I think that's a full council item.
So is it something we could recommend? Or is it just, you just present it? Because somebody has to bring it forward.
I think it comes up under item 8.
And it adds to the work plan for the city attorney, city clerk and city manager's office. So we have to look at timing
Yes.
for it and
Oh.
what your intent is.
My intent is to get rid of it. It's,
Intent of the timing.
that's legal
for
needs
it.
from him.
Why don't we, you and I can talk.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll,
I have an idea.
Okay. And the other one is, this is for the ballot measure, and I don't know if it needs to be a recommendation, that the council, change their pay and get more money,
The charter,
the charter.
Oh, the charter cleanup.
And does that come up? Because if we're going to the ballot measure, this is the time to do it.
There was supposed to be a study session at some point.
There is one coming, so you can raise it.
I'd raise it there because, well, two things. First, so there's two separate ballot measures that are underway now that we're considering. So the revenue measure ad hoc committee will really just be talking about the revenue measure piece. The charter code cleanup, the city attorney's office and city manager's office are working together on that one,
Okay, so,
not for the ad hoc committee. What you're talking about would be the work that the city attorney's office and my office are working on.
okay,
And I think that would need to come up as an item that you all discuss when we bring the agenda item forward.
when you say we all, or
You
all.
as in council, once staff brings the item to you all to give feedback on and finalize, but I would just say this. The intent for the charter cleanup for 2026 was supposed to be very simple cleanup items, changing language, referencing genders, things that are antiquated or outdated. It was supposed to be a little simpler. And then the thought was the direction from council was to bring another kind of phase 2 in 2028, which had a little more probably teeth on the charter. So bringing a pay increase is probably, I mean, you can do it, but it's probably a little more than the simple cleanup than what we had intended. So just think about it. I would say just think about that. You can bring it up, you can add
Yeah.
it, but
I'm gonna be dogging on this.
it's gonna change it's gonna change the simplicity of the 2026 measure, so.
There was 3 things. So what we've talked about that, I was talking about the pay raise. There was something else that we went with the election that we went through that goes, that didn't seem like sense.
The finance committee is gonna review the travel stuff, because that got frozen during COVID and
Oh, yeah.
everything. So that's, I don't know if that was it, the third one, but.
No, that's all those are simple ones. What else did we want to change? Well, how about dinner at every meal? We can do that in a simple Strava.
Okay, so we've.
Did you need direction?
I was going to just respond, if I could please, committee member, council member, to your comment about the council work plan item. We are underway on a preliminary action plan for that item, and it will be worked on over the next 2 years. And you're right, staff is looking forward strategically at how many, years it will take us to update the various policies. But what we've done is we've begun cataloging all of that. We also have a similar initiative underway, which is looking at all the contracts. Our city attorney's office is ensuring that those are updated, and we have a contract work group that is also working through, some refinements to existing policy there. So we will have a work plan associated with that little sub-plan, and we are definitely making that a focus over the next 2 years.
Is that something that could be shared at least with the chair of the CPPC?
Sure, as we develop that, maybe for one of our next meetings, we usually will meet in the spring, or we can give you an off agenda memo.
Either way, I mean, as in the next version of this, like here's, because like this is usually, like this is literally the meeting that we had today, right?
Yes,
There's not a lot of
yes.
foresight into what we're gonna do.
Sure.
So perhaps that work plan, could be incorporated into the agenda topics update moving forward, just so we have some line of sight
Some
on,
sense of it.
what are we gonna be doing, or will we ever meet again, I don't. So
So
thank
when you
you.
get reelected, they'll have that available for you to take care of in
I
a couple of
am,
years.
I am termed out.
I said, when you get reelected.
I'm ineligible for reelection.
Oh, no, you're not. 2 years, but hey, don't ever say never.
I don't think I'm
I
gonna.
got caught in that one.
There's still no members of the public, I think, comment on 5.2, so we'll close that and move on to item 6. Are there any committee staff on this question or report? Oh, I think we covered most everything just in the last item. Okay, still no public on item 6, so we'll close that and we will adjourn the meeting at 10:10 a.m. Thank you, everyone. 70 minutes. Thank you.
20 minutes to spare.